You know, we're always told that if you live an active, engaged life, your brain is going to be protected as you get older, right? But what if there's a hidden enemy, something that can sneak right past all those defenses? That's what we're diving into today, this surprising battle between our brain's protective shield and the seriously corrosive power of stress. Let's get into it.
So, let me just ask you this straight up. You stay active, you've got a challenging job, you're social. You're doing everything right. But is that really enough? Is it enough to protect your brain from cognitive decline? For a long time, we all thought the answer was a definite yes. But well, it turns out the story is a whole lot more complicated.
And that complication, it comes from some brand new research that's found a pretty shocking vulnerability in our brain's defenses. It's a real plot twist, you know? It completely changes how we need to think about our long-term brain health. It kind of suggests that even our best plans might have a major, critical flaw.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this vulnerability, we first have to talk about our brain's main defense system. I want you to picture it like a protective shield, or maybe some kind of invisible armor. The scientific term for this is cognitive reserve. Now, what's so cool about cognitive reserve is that it's not something you're just born with. Nope, it's the brain's amazing ability to handle damage, and it's something we actively build up over our whole lives by having stimulating and enriching experiences. You can think of it as your mental resilience, literally forged in action.
So how do we actually build this thing? Well, research points to a few key areas. Things like higher education, having a mentally challenging job, of course, staying physically active, making time for hobbies you enjoy, and keeping up those healthy social connections. Every single one of these adds another layer to that protective shield, making your brain stronger and better at fighting off decline.
But, and this is a big but, here's where the story takes a sharp turn. A really important discovery from a study in Sweden introduces a villain into our story: stress. Yeah. It turns out this hidden saboteur can basically undermine all that hard work you've been doing to build up that cognitive shield.
So here's the bottom line, in a nutshell. If you've built up a high cognitive reserve and you have low stress, great, your shield works just like it's supposed to, protecting your brain. But, and this is the kicker, if you have that same high reserve, but you combine it with high levels of psychological stress, well, those benefits are seriously reduced. Your shield gets compromised. It just doesn't work as well. So the obvious question is, how, right? How can something invisible, like stress, actually cause physical damage to our brain's defenses? Well, the answer is this biological chain reaction. It's a process of sabotage, really, that starts in our minds, but ends up right inside our brain cells.
And here's the key insight. It all comes down to a hormone called cortisol. As Dr. Logan Dubose puts it, when you're under chronic stress, your system just gets flooded with cortisol. And these high levels can physically, damage the hippocampus. That's the memory center of your brain. The big takeaways here is that stress isn't just a feeling, it's a physical attack on your brain's hardware.
So let's just break that chain reaction down, step by step. First, you've got chronic psychological stress. That leads to your cortisol levels going up and staying up. Then, all that extra cortisol starts to damage your hippocampus, your memory center. And the final result? All those hard-earned benefits from your cognitive reserve, they're basically canceled out, wiped away.
All right, so we know chronic stress and its little chemical weapon, cortisol, are the bad guys. But this brings us to a really fascinating and kind of tricky paradox. What happens when the very things you do to build your cognitive reserve are also the source of that chronic stress? It creates this kind of biological double-edged sword.
Irv Selden gives a perfect example. Think about a pilot or a surgeon. Their jobs are incredibly complex, mentally, which is fantastic for building up that cognitive reserve. But the constant high-stakes stress that comes with that work can also jack up their cortisol levels, which then undermines the very benefits they're creating. It's wild, right? It's like they're building their shield with one hand and weakening it with the other, all at the same time.
So what are we supposed to do about this? This isn't a story without a solution. Don't worry. If stress is the saboteur, then learning to manage that stress is exactly how we can repair and beef up our defenses. So let's dive into some real, actionable strategies for building a truly resilient mind.
So, the research points to a whole toolkit of strategies, not just one magic bullet. You've got techniques like mindfulness and meditation, which are amazing for bringing those cortisol levels down. Physical exercise is a huge one. It does double duty, right? It builds your reserve and fights stress. And then there are other things, like therapy or even just creating quiet, calm environments for yourself. And get this, even things like storytelling and word games can help manage stress and protect your brain.
And that really brings us to the final and maybe the most important question. We spend so much time and effort building up our cognitive reserve, our brain's protector. But are we doing enough to protect the protector? Are we shielding our shield from the silent damage of stress? It's a huge question to think about, because really, the entire resilience of our mind depends on the answer. Thanks for joining me.